Grice, Bob James T-Marts, number 2 Commodore, continues to lead round 2 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. You'll see the gap back to George Fury shortly. It's closing all the time as the Tal Malmo farmer continues to gain. Laps on his side at this stage. And he's driven a pressure cooker race. George Fury shuffled out in the opening laps to Peter Brock, forced to do it the hard way with Brock. He got his only break when Brock got a little offline going beneath the Isis Bridge. Snapped up 3rd spot, then to 2nd.
The gap is now 4.8, by the way, Mike. 4.8 seconds between Grice and Fury.
Well, we have an exciting finish coming up to round 2 of the Australian Touring Car Championship. It all depends on this man. Welcome back to Symmons Place, lap 46 of 60, 14 remain. Did Gricey do it? Andrew Madecki running 10th spot at the moment in the Oxo Supercube Cosworth Sierra. And at the moment, probably the lead runner of all the Sierra drivers, 37 years of age, comes from Port Macquarie. Drives, of course, a Ford Sierra. 2nd in 74-75 Australian Formula 2, 2nd in the 82 Formula 1, 3rd in the 83 Formula 1, and first attempt at the Australian Touring Car Championship this year. Nissan know-how stats, Andrew Madecki. And he'll get stronger as the year progresses and doing a good job. Peter Brock, meanwhile, has a tiger by the tail, and that young tiger is 21-year-old Glenn Seaton, who is just trying desperately to get past Brock. But he has had to suffer the indignity of everyone else, obviously, of pulling up alongside and having Brock out accelerate him and then cover his tracks rather successfully. So Brock slipping back through the pack. And the latest up to challenge, Glenn Seaton, the round 1 winner of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Calder in Victoria last weekend. Here he goes, down the outside. We'll pull it in tight now to try, but that didn't work. Far from it. In fact, he lost a lot of ground. Interesting to see whether Seaton's car has gone off the boil. May well have. He floated in there on the outside to feint a pass, and then I think was setting up for an inside run coming out. No, still running. So Glenn Seaton back in the pack today. He was at the head of it last weekend, 7 days ago. It's a whole different ball game at Symmons Plains this afternoon. Gricey still continuing to lead the Australian Touring Car round. The Roadways team, headed by Les Small, have taken over the Graham Bailey Chickadee Chicken entry, the car that won Bathurst last year, and that's what we're seeing Alan Grice in today. Glenn Seaton, meanwhile, continues down to the Coca-Cola sweeper. Rocky certainly got away from him in that last lap. 10 laps left. I tell you what, we're in for a cliffhanger of a finish here. With all the problems going wrong for Alan Grice, lack of volts, everything warming up for him. Can he hold on for another 10 circuits?
Do you want to hear my ifs and buts equation of point scores?
Go for it, kid.
Okay, well, if Glenn Seaton gets up and goes past Peter Brock, he will maintain the Touring Car Championship points lead, 42 points with Alan Grice. That's if he gets past Peter Brock at this stage of the game. Jim Richards, if he finishes in the place that he's in at the moment, would have 38 points, and Larry Perkins would probably have 37. An awful lot of ifs and buts, a long way to go at this stage of the game, but that would make it very interesting for round 3 at Lakeside in Queensland coming up next month.
Certainly would, and the Roadways team looking at new VL Commodore down the track. Of course, Peter Brock had the first of the VFL Commodores under construction, but in fact sold it to a mystery buyer only a couple of weeks ago. In fact, 14 days ago, before the opening round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Be interesting to see where that car turns up and with whom a little later on. Car number 2 is Alan Grice, and the man catching him all the time is George Fury in the Peter Jackson Nissan Skyline car number 30. There's the gap. There's only daylight behind Grice's car 6 or 8 laps ago.
I'll try and get an accurate gap on it, just exactly what it is at the moment. And 2.75 seconds, the race is on. And just to the left of where those cars were in the hills around Symmons Plains, it is black as the ace of spades at the moment. We might throw in some rain just to make this one a real difficult finish.
Well, George Fury has to catch Grice, first of all, then has to pass it.
And we saw how long it took him to round up Peter Brock and how hard it is to pass a big car like a Commodore that has some great straight line speed. George Fury's the driver that has come back 2 weeks in a row. Was held up last week in the opening third of the race, really embroiled in a battle that just drained him and wore the tyres, made the brakes hot, and tried very hard towards the end to ultimately get Larry Perkins or indeed his teammate Glenn Seaton, but finished third. Gricey now rounding up Colin Bond in the Caltex Alpha 75. Goodbye Bondi. And Bob James chopper in the background there. And there's George Fury diving down the inside, and boy, the front of that Nissan was looming rapidly.
Bond sits in behind Alan Grice. There's Fury closing all the time. Laps running out, still on the side of the race leader. That's Alan Grice. Oh, and a puff of smoke there coming out of Grice's Commodore. Bondi tries to hold the inside line tight to give Fury the run down the outside.
Well, he's got problems. Everything was hot in the car. So George Fury goes through to lead, and that's a real tragedy for Gricey. He had to switch the pumps off. He's probably got a gearbox or a diff problem because the car's run so hot. And George Fury's gone through. Look at everything hanging in the red. Gearbox is hot, diff's hot. He's got no charge, no water. It's a terrible equation. So Gricey in drive. The shots from Symmons race cam.
Well, he gave it his best shot and was heading down to a nail-biting finish. A dejected man, Alan Grice, heading back to the pit area. How close do you have to come? George.
Can you hear us, Gricey?
Mike Raymond, Alan, can you hear us?
Yep.
Bad luck, mate. You gave that your best shot.
Yeah, just didn't come together. It's cooked. It's overheated. It's gone on to 7.
Okay, mate. Can you stay in the car just for a sec? We're in a break, but we want to come back and just have a quick talk with you.
Okay.
Would you mind? Actually, if the crew want to sit close around, we can swing the race cam around if you see Les Small.
They're talking to me.
Coming to you in 1 sec, Al.
Right.
Lap 55 of 60 in the second round of the Australian Touring Car Championship, and the man who looked like he had this one all parcelled up despite the problems is Alan Grice. Well, tough luck, Alan. You really gave it your best shot.
Yeah, it wasn't to be our day, was it?
Well, it was a case of, was there anything in the car that wasn't cooking?
Yeah, you're pretty right. I've got a suspicion it all goes back to that alternator light. You know, these things are traceable. Maybe the alternator then is finally seized or something and flicked the belt off, and then that starts the water temperature. But as I suggested to you, once the light came on, I then drove on the volts meter. Once I started to get down below 12 volts, I turned off both the different gearbox pumps. And that then brought these temperatures up. Oh, they come back down on that slowdown lap, but they're both running in the red. There's my red low water light you might see blinking there on the dash.
Yep.
That's the low water light in the head. And from there on, I got water temperature. I was surprised I didn't have a lot of oil temperature, and that was the thing that made me keep going until the water started to come up the front of the bonnet and down here on the floor, and then that was about it before we lost the engine. You know, we don't want to throw the engine away.
Well, you showed today you can sprint and outsprint those Nissans too. The gap that you had built up, 7+ seconds, it surprised you with the ease you're able to do that?
Yeah, well, you probably looked pretty easy doing your commentary, Mike. I was working pretty hard. The motor car was going as deep under brakes as every application was as hard as I could. The tyres, I didn't give them a spell. Everything just went very well until we had that little problem. But you know, there's more to come out of this car. I don't think the Nissans are going to have it their way the rest of the year by any stretch.
All right, Alan, bad luck indeed for you today. I'll let you get back and have a talk to Sparksy. We were lucky we got on first. We had a camera in the car.
Okay, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Bye-bye.
So Alan Grice exits the touring car round 2, but he'll be back at Lakeside in a few weeks' time. Peter Brock continues to make life very difficult for Glenn Seaton in car number 15. They've been at it for, what, 20, 25 laps.
And this is the battle for 4th position. Glenn Seaton now pressuring Brock. Brock's the man who's really copped it from everybody today. He's had George Fury working away at the back of him. He almost had Larry Perkins. He certainly had Jim Richards, and now he's got Glenn Seaton. Colin Bond in the background there in the Alpha, and now Seaton up on the outside, trying to swap positions from 5th to 4th. The other interesting thing, having done a few calculations, is that with Jim Richards having moved up to 2nd place, he will ultimately come out of today's championship race in the 2nd round down here in Tasmania as the points leader in the Touring Car Championship. Shades of 1985 and Jim Richards and the JPS BMW team. Look how much stronger and how much faster Brock's car is in a straight line here, but look at Glenn Seaton close under brakes and how quick he is. Perhaps his tyres have a little more life in them at the moment than the Brock car. But I would think that the way his car went downhill all of a sudden very early in the race, that something was astray with Glenn's car.
Well, he's come back storming again behind Peter Brock. Was very close to him about 6 or 8 laps ago. Made one little fluff over near Coca-Cola corner and dropped off by about 6 car lengths. And it's taken him all those laps to come back. But Brock's going to make the youngster do it the hard way. No easy lessons from a professional. And once again, out of the hairpin corner, Brock is able to get away from Glenn Seaton.
This would also bring Seaton back up to be able to challenge and try and retain his points lead in the title as well. So it's a battle within a battle. If he can get this extra position, that changes the complexion again.
Neither of them, of course, are that far behind Richards still. Seaton trying every way he knows there to get past Brock. He's on the grass there for a moment.
Well, they would only have a couple of laps left at best, probably 2. This time across the line, Brock, Seaton sitting right inside by side, down to the hairpin again. Race order: George Fury, Jimmy Richards, Peter Brock and Glenn Seaton. This is the scrap for 3rd. Still a force to be reckoned with in Australian motorsport. And that's Peter Brock. Keep an eye on him when he fronts up a little later in the series with the new VL model Commodore. He might be beaten onto the track by who knows who in the first of the Brock cars process for the Touring Car Championship through the Coca-Cola sweeper. Coming into past the Isis Bridge. And George Fury just about on his last lap. 59 of 60 for the 2nd round Australian Touring Car Championship. Keep in mind, George finished 3rd last weekend, and things looking good for him today. Down once again towards the sweeper. Through Castrol now. and holding a very, very big gap over Jimmy Richards in the JPS BMW M3 car.
It's not been a good day for the Roadways team. That looks like Crosby's car there.
Graham Crosby limping off the racetrack with only half a lap remaining. So George Fury heading down towards Australian National Line corner. Here he comes now. The last bend, Australian National Line turn. Georgie Fury is ready. The checkered flag is ready also, and he greets it. George Fury across the line, and he will take round 2 of the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship from Symmons Plains. Second spot across the line will in fact go to Jimmy Richards, and making it, Peter Brock, who's handed a driving lesson out to some of the top professionals here today at Symmons Plains. Well, the farmer's done.